Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk All About It Tuesday. My name is Cynthia Adjaman, and I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Maryland and DC. And Talk All About It is a creative space for myself to merge all my different roles, right? I'm a mom, I'm a therapist, I'm a woman, and there's lots of topics that I usually like to talk about. And so I feel like this is my space to do that. And the lives allows me to talk all about it with different guests to help us think differently about things, feel differently about different experiences, and also to learn how to heal, right? Because obviously in my role as a therapist, I help my clients through their own healing journeys. And so this has become a really fun way for me to interact with lots of different people. And today we are talking all about self-care for the summertime, or self-care in the summer for parents and non-parents too. So if you're a parent, or you're not a parent yet, but you're just somebody who enjoys talking about self-care, all things self-care, please join us. We are speaking with Kristi today, and I'm really excited. I'm gonna let Kristi introduce herself because she wears lots of different hats, but I feel like she's definitely a self-care expert in our field, and so I'm really excited to speak with her. She's also a mom, and she just has such a great way of sharing resources and information, all things self-care and parents and all of that. So I'm really excited to speak with her today. Hopefully you guys are doing good on this Tuesday. It's kind of like a slow transition into the week, right? I still feel like, oh, it's only Tuesday. I feel like it should be Wednesday or Thursday. But I've been having a really good week so far, and I heard something today just before I got on the live, and I'm hoping that he's doing okay. Apparently, LeBron James's son was rushed to the hospital. He goes to USC during a practice or something like that. So hopefully he's doing okay. That was a little bit jarring when I saw that. So wishing him health and wellness and everything, and hopefully he recovers soon. So I see Kristi on here, and as soon as I can get her on board, we will get started. Okay. Invite her on. And then we can get started. Okay, here we go.
Hi,
Hi, Kristi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for taking some time with me today.
Of course, I'm so excited we finally got our schedules to match up.
I know. And especially during the summertime too, right? I feel like that's our busiest time of year in many, many ways. So I'm glad that we're able to touch base today. Please, I didn't want to, I introduce you a little bit, so please share with everybody that is coming on, or they'll watch this a little bit later, who you are, where people can find you, and then we can kind of get into today's topic.
Absolutely. So I'm in California. I know we're on different time zones, and I kept DMing Cynthia. I'm like, I just want to be sure because it's my fear.
It's 10 o'clock your time, so
Right,
early morning there still, yeah.
With the mental load of parenting, I'm like, I'm going to show up an hour later and be like, what's up? Wait, what we're doing? But I'm a mom of two, almost 6 and 9, and I'm a marriage and family therapist in California. And I really started parent self-care during the pandemic, just, for wanting connection and community and a creative outlet. But it really began when I shifted to school-based work as a parent. And the program that I was in, what I loved is the mission was really pouring into the educators and to the parents, and knowing that as school-based therapists, we often only get to work individually or in groups with the kids. But we know as therapists from a systems perspective, the better the adults are doing, the better everyone's going to be doing at school. And I just loved that approach. And I think that was really, planted the seeds for parent self-care.
I love that. So obviously the website is Parent Self-Care, and it has so many wonderful resources on there. So please tell us about what people can find on there, and then we can kind of get started a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can tell I love to draw on my iPad. You can tell my colors and the aesthetic I like. It's probably why I work in elementary and middle school. I connect with elementary school teachers in that way.
Right.
But there's a ton of free stuff on there, blogs,
So
downloads,
many.
and things like that, because I know I don't always want to sign up for a newsletter for everything. But then I do ask you to sign up for the newsletter for some. I really try to put a ton of great stuff. If you go on there and do the free download section, you'll really find a lot of great stuff there as well.
No, I've been perusing on there, and then also obviously you have a book that you wrote for parents and all kinds of things. I mean, so I have to tell you, one of the things I love about your page and also your website is that as soon as you go on there, you'll find something. If you hadn't thought about it, you'll find something that will help you with your self-care. So like, how do you, obviously your journey through, what's the website? So it's parentselfcare.com. So all three words, parentselfcare.com. Very easy. Go on there. Lots of great information Kristi shares. But so kind of talk us through, outside of like your own transition to focusing on parent self-care, what's been your self-care journey like as a parent, from before you became a parent to your journey as a parent of two kids?
Well, I don't know when you enter the field, but for a lot of people, it might be a second career or later in their life. This was a second career for me. But I came into parenthood with, I would say, about 5 years of a strong self-care practice. And I felt like I had this insider information, right? We're mental health therapists. We're taught about taking care of ourselves, how to share that with clients. And I'm like, I'm going to have a kid. And this is great because I already know about self-care.
Yeah.
But I got real humbled because a lot of what you do is not available when you have a newborn. So I count that as like, that was one piece of just sort of reworking what is rest, because I'm a sleeper. Like I sleep about 8 hours a night. You know, that's not happening when you have new kids. So just reworking all these things, how I see my friends and not being able to talk to them as much or see them as much. And that's such an important part of my self-care. And so then I sort of emerged from that. And then we had the pandemic. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm at home with a newborn again, even though my kids are 2 and 5? And I know everybody had their own experience, but I've had these different periods where self-care really had to shift in a way that I never really anticipated. So that's part of why I share it, is because I think, you know, sometimes people have these ideas, including myself, around what we as mental health providers are going to be able to do to nurture ourselves. And I just got real humbled by real life parenthood. And I just like to share, you know, what worked for me, and just really knowing different seasons of parenthood, it's going to look different. And so that's okay. You know,
I feel like we should be having more of those conversations, right? Because I don't think some of us do a really good job of it, right? And some of us do not, because we feel like no one can relate to us, or nobody understands what we're going through. But like you said, everybody, right, goes through that initial shock of, you mean I can't sleep when the baby's sleeping?
They said we could. Everybody loves to say that, but okay.
Yeah. So I love that, you know, you like you talk about that, and you share your own experiences of like having to figure what that looks like for you, right?
Yeah.
After parenthood. And as the kids are getting older too, that also changes as well.
Yes. I think there's a lot of grief in it, to be honest, right? Sort of depending on what your life looks like, but grieving the loss of like certain freedoms, or, you know, I said too, like first I was mad about not being able to sleep, and then I had to allow myself to grieve it. And then it's, okay, what can I do, right?
Yeah.
Like there's different, you know, and everyone's different, but those were the things I had to get through to get to that spot, to be more flexible around my self-care.
Yeah. No, I love that. So for me, I had my kids are I have to think, 10, 7, and 2, right?
Okay.
So if you think about it, the 2 older ones, they're like self-sufficient now, and then we decide, right, why not, let's add another one. And so that just changes everything, right? Because when they're like a little bit more self-sufficient, you can do more things, right? You have more autonomy, you have more freedom to kind of go and do. But then when you add a younger one, that changes everything. So I think for me, a few years ago, I had to kind of grieve during the pandemic, because she came around the pandemic too. I had to grieve and process that for myself, that, oh, I need to, again, shift back to when they're young and you don't have that much freedom anymore, right?
Right.
So there is that shift that happens as your kids are at different stages and their needs are different and the expectations on you are different too.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of what, we see online, I think it's really hard to sort of hold that dialectical nature that we talk about in
Mm,
therapy in the Instagram
yeah.
square world.
Mm-hmm.
But self-care is not just about putting yourself first. I mean, we know with kids, when your kids are younger, the reality is their needs are probably bigger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think the big thing for me is you can get into that mode and then never get out of that habit. I just like
Mm,
to keep having this ongoing conversation because I can get stuck in that tunnel vision, and then I'll be with a friend that's also a mother and maybe they're a few years
mhm,
ahead of me, and
mhm.
they model that. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do that for myself, or I can think about things a little differently. So that's another piece for me as well. It's not always going to be
Yeah.
even, but just not forgetting about ourselves.
Right, right. And then everybody's experience looks different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because everybody is at different stages in their lives.
Yes.
And
Yes.
stages in development, right,
Mm-hmm.
are very important too during self-care. I'm glad that everybody that's coming on, we're speaking with Kristi of parentselfcare.com. And that's also your handle on IG as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what the reason I wanted to have this like self-care in the summertime is because I do feel like the summertime self-care it has to look a little bit different, right? Because throughout the year, yes, focus is on our kids, but there's like chunks of time that we have when we're working or when we're, the kids are in activities and different things like that. But the summertime, the focus is on the kids, right? Because
Yes.
most of the time, if they're not in camp, they're at home and you're staring at each other and you have to figure out how to navigate that. So can you talk a little bit about what self-care looks like for you during the summertime versus the year, if it is different?
Yeah, and I'll share a little bit too about just what I've seen with families I've worked with and friends,
Mm-hmm.
just because I am a school-based therapist, so I am off in the summer.
Yeah.
And I will say summers are a source of reprieve for me. But I do think what it has reminded me of is connecting me back with that childhood
Mm-hmm.
experience, that there's a rhythm to the year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so there's the school year, and then there's this idea of like a break and rest and fun and playful summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reconnected to that shifting to the school-based schedule. And I think that's what I really try to share with clients. Is can you just grab a little piece of that for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And particularly for working parents
Yeah.
and especially elementary school, with these ages, summers are really hard. It's like you're putting together this puzzle
Yeah.
piece of
Yeah.
childcare. And even if you have awesome camps that you can afford, you're probably starting at 9 instead of 8 or 8:30, which really impacts a working parent's schedule. Maybe you're picking up at 3:30, or you have to figure out paying
Mm-hmm.
for extended school days,
Mm-hmm.
or having family or babysitters involved. And it is really exhausting,
Yeah.
even beyond what we joke about as parents in the elementary school of, you know, a random minimum day here and 3 spirit days here, and your mind explodes a little bit. But in the summer, I think it's times 10. I don't
Yeah.
know if you feel that as well.
I mean, so I'm lucky in the sense that I work from home, and I actually
Okay.
used to be a school-based therapist too. I
Okay.
miss my summers off, right? Because it was almost like your mind was wired to, okay, I get this time,
Right.
uninterrupted time with the kids, and we get to have like lots of fun and different activities. But my life is a little bit different now, whereas I work from home, but we still need to figure out what to do with the kids, right? And when you're talking about like over here, we get 2 months off. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like 8 weeks of
Right.
camp. Who can afford that like
Right.
the entire time? So definitely there is a lot of like shuffling around, trying to figure out, my schedule, my husband's schedule, different activities and different things like that. So I love that image of the puzzle and trying to piece it together because yeah, if you're not mindful, it can become overwhelming for sure.
Yeah. I think the big thing for me, just being, I always say a recovering perfectionist, and I think a lot of the people that are drawn to my page can relate to that as well, is just regardless of whether you're working a little bit outside of the home, a lot out of the home, working fully in the home, just being gentle with yourself. I do think summer is a little bit about loosening the expectations.
Yeah.
That feels good for parents and for kids, not throwing away the routine because that would be too unsettling, but
Yeah.
that we get to just be a little bit more chill about an extra movie night, or whatever those sort of boundaries or rules are in your
Mm,
house, that you can be a little bit more relaxed with
yeah.
that. Um, And I know we all know this, but I think it feels good to hear it. Our kids tend to enjoy not the most expensive curated things we plan. They tend to find moments of joy climbing on the rock while you were trying to hike to that place to get the
Yeah.
view, to get a picture. And so knowing that even if you can't afford X, Y, or Z or whatever you see
Yeah.
online, usually being able to be present and drop into those moments is really what is joyful for the kids. And then just being really gentle with yourself and with your kids, because there's a lot of transitions. Particularly if you have young kids, right? You might see some transitions be harder because they're out of the routine of school, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And to be gentle with yourself about that as well. But those are some of the things that I try to keep in mind. And if you can, and I think sometimes we're too tired, and I get that, to really take a night that you carve out to do some creative planning around, maybe it's asking, a trusted family member to come, or I'm finally at the point, which is awesome, where we're swapping babysitting nights and date nights with friends. If you can do a little bit of planning just to give yourself some of those few bigger chunks to look forward to, it can really pay off. But I totally relate to being so burned out you can't even schedule. But I think those things are nice as well.
It sounds like you definitely have to be intentional, right? Especially because the summertime can be so overwhelming. Intentionality has to be part of the planning part of it.
Yeah. I think so, right? And I think, I like to talk about little micro things you can do as well, because you have to have those little things that you can spread throughout the day, whether that's just pausing to take a few deep breaths. My favorite practice, and this is not seasonal, it's for all time, is, from Dr. Shauna Shapiro's book, Good Morning, I Love You. And it's a self-compassion practice. And all you do is wake up in the morning, put your hand on your heart, say, good morning, I love you, Kristi. And that's a way just to say, I'm here for you too, because I know I'm about to sort of head into mom mode or whatever that is, but just taking those little moments to connect with yourself. And then when you have some time and space, or asking someone to say, hey, can you help me stay accountable, that we can maybe plan some fun things.
Can you talk about the 5 S's of self-care?
Sure.
Because I feel like that's definitely, and again, it's not seasonal, but you can be very intentional with it during the summertime, right? Because there's so much, the snuggles, you can get some of that. You can get some of that, practice that self-compassion, because we do tend to be hard on ourselves when maybe like daycare, doesn't fall through, or, camp doesn't go as we intended. Something happens and you got to go pick up the kid or whatever.
Right.
Hard on ourselves. So I feel like the 5 S's can definitely be incorporated in the summertime.
Yeah. Well, I love those. I just wrote about them again, and I just made them up,
I love it.
The 5 S's are sunlight, and this is for me, who I call myself an indoor cat, right? I got to get myself outside. It helps my mental health, but my preference is always to stay home and read. So I got to get myself outside.
But can I tell you how you can? It's so like my daughter. She's like you. She's also an indoor cat, but she would rather stay inside doing her, whatever she's doing indoors. And so yesterday, actually, I was like, well, I'm going to go for my walk because I need to go for a walk. And so she didn't want to come. She was just like, complete attitude. By the end of it, we were both outside. She was like pushing her sister in the stroller. She was running. And by the time we got back, right, both of us felt so good and relaxed. And I'm like, see, didn't you just enjoy being out in the sun? Right? So we can incorporate.
Was she able to say yes? Because my kids would okay.
Of course,
so
she was just like,
right.
But yeah.
That's what I would get, right? So I would know, and I would not be able to help myself and be like, see, don't we feel better? Okay, well, that's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that, you can do. Really, one of the only things you can do with younger kids is just, we're getting in the stroller and we're getting some fresh air. So that's been a basic one. I just find like the snuggles with kids, or if you have a pet or just a cozy blanket, Emily and Amelia Nagowski talk about that's one of the 7 ways to complete the stress cycle. It releases the cuddle hormone or the love hormone, oxytocin. And then, let's see, snuggles, sunlight, snoozing is just my way to just incorporate rest, sleep and rest, whatever that looks like for you, because we know it's not, depending on where you are in parenthood, you can't control it all. And then I talk a lot about self-compassion and just sort of, meeting your challenges the same way we try to show up for our kids or
Yeah.
try to show up for our bestie. And then the other one, I know I'm missing another one, but is self-advocacy.
I
And
love
that,
that.
I think that's an important part of self-care. It's a little bit more challenging, especially for more people pleasers
Yeah.
versus the, the treat yourself or get a manicure. But it really is saying, I want this or I need this. And getting comfortable
Yeah.
with that. And that could be with your kids. It can be with, if you parent with a partner, it can be at work.
Yeah.
And those are the ways that you sort of advocate for yourself so that you do have time and space to show up for yourself.
I think the self-advocacy and self-compassion, like such big ones, right? Because there is this tendency to believe that we can do it all, or we have to do it all, right? The shoulds and the have tos, right? So I feel like definitely practicing those two things comes in really, really handy when you're feeling that way. You can just, reframe that a little bit. Like, let me practice self-compassion. It's okay for me to feel overwhelmed. It's okay for me to ask for help. It's okay for me to say, I need to do this, right? Or I want to do this. Or can you help me, right? Yeah.
And I like to share too, as just a mom that chooses to work in this field, the self-advocacy part and the self-compassion part. Those are the two pieces I share a lot of psycho ed on, but I just want to share a lot of therapy around those pieces. So this is an area where it may look really nice in an Instagram square and you have the script, but you might need more time and support with that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds catchy, but it took, a lot of practice.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I feel like it goes into the self-advocacy and self-compassion, is the feelings of guilt that comes, right? Mom guilt, I feel like, is real. We experience it all the time. And for me, it was a few weeks ago, my friends and I were like, let's go to Vegas, right? To go see Usher. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas to see Usher? And
amazing.
Right? And so the kids had a swim meet during the weekend, and that was one of the weekend that, we were going to plan to go. And for a moment, I felt this like, the guilt feeling kind of started, surging up. And I said to myself, you know what, it's okay. I had to talk myself down a little bit, right, from those feelings that were coming up. And it's normal and it's natural. You don't want to miss something that they're doing because it's important. It's only summer swimming is only like for a short period of time or whatever, right? But I had to talk myself down and practice the compassion and practice that self-soothing that I needed to say, but I want to do this. Like, I need to spend time with my friends, and it's okay for me to want to do that too.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes, we have to be conscientious about working through the guilty feelings that come up naturally, because we care about our kids and we want the best, we want to be there for all of their events. But sometimes we also need to think about, what do I need? Right?
Well, there's this one book that really helped me, and I'll tell you, I read it because I was in a book club with some new moms that didn't know very well. So there was a little bit of pressure to actually finish the book. As a tired mom, I love this author. It's Julie Lythcott-Haims, and it's called How to Raise an Adult. But it was a pretty long book with tiny print. And, my kids were younger, okay? So it was a bit of a stretch. But two things I got from that book that really stood out to me were that we actually spend, working mothers who work outside of the home, right, in addition to the work that they do as parents. And I mean that to you as well, as working in the home. Just you're doing a job outside of parenting. But we spend more time with our kids than the housewives of the 1950s. Because there was less stranger danger, less fear around kidnapping. There was a lot more, and not when they were babies, but you'll hear your parents say there was a lot more, go out and bike with your friends, come back when it's dark and we'll have dinner. We don't do that anymore.
No.
And so that gave me a really big sense of comfort that, okay, so yes, I might miss certain things or I can't be at everything, but I actually am spending just as much time, if not more potentially, than typical moms of this, sort of 1950s generation. And the other thing, she specifically talks about not going to all the sporting events. That's a specific thing that she says. And she says, I intentionally do not go to all of them. And I will say, I'm going to walk with my friend, and that's really going to help in this certain area, and I'll be at this other event. And it's a real way of modeling healthy social skills. I think that's a lot of what we worry about as parents, but it's just showing, like, you can't expect these friendships to keep going on forever and forever if you don't nurture them and pour into them. And then also because of my guilt, I will do a lot of naming what's happening. It's 50% for me and 50% for my kids because I'm working through my anxiety or guilt. I'll say, we have the babysitter tonight. I know you don't want the babysitter, maybe for X, Y, and Z, but I'm going to go out, with your dad because it's really important for us to take care of our relationship, and it helps the whole family. And they're probably like, lady, what are you talking about? We're 6 and 9. But in my mind, that's my way of saying, like, this is helpful for everyone. And then my last piece, that I think about as therapist is you don't have to wait for the guilt to go away to do something. It's the both.
Work through it. Yeah.
I can feel guilty, like you said, I can name it, and I'm still going to choose to go see my friends and see Usher.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but that was the one thing I missed the most when I had kids. Being with my friends like that just fills my soul in such a special way. And you can't go see Usher when you got a 3-month-old. It's just not happening.
It's just not happening.
It's not happening. So there may be guilt around it, but if that's something that's important to you, and it is to me, to just say, I feel guilty and I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, the and, right? The and is so important. And also, just to add to what you just said, the modeling for the kids is so important, right? Because my daughter, the middle one, kept on saying, so you're going to go to Las Vegas to see Usher with your friends? I'm like, yeah. We're gonna have so much fun, and I think, right? Because it's almost like we're gonna have fun, right? Because I feel like it's important. I mean, we nurture all their friendships, and we're constantly doing play dates and different things like that, right? So, what a great way for us to also model that we have friendships that we need to nurture, and mom and dads do fun things too. Yes, that's their kids, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do work I'm in Silicon Valley, so I work with a lot of very intelligent, highly pressured, anxious kids. And some of them will even talk about, even in middle school, the grind of being an adult and how stressful it is at that age. So I'm like, I think it's great for us to model having fun and staying connected to our friends and say, look, there's a lot of stuff about adulting that isn't all that great, okay? But we can still have fun too. We don't have to let that go completely.
Yeah. And so the one of the things I feel like summer allows us, like you said, right, to be very intentional about fun is that it's supposed to be a fun, free kind of time. So you can incorporate your own self-care as well as, take care of the kids as well. Go to the pool, right? Going to the beach. That's why, like, for us during the summertime, the beach is one of the fun things that we love, like kind of just going and being free. The kids are having fun. We're kind of chilling. There's this interconnectedness that we have, right? That we're both doing the same things, and it's almost like we're in alignment in those moments. So finding those moments for you as a family, or you as an individual with your children is so important, I feel like. And that's what summer, I feel like, does more of that anyway, in my mind anyway, in my experiences.
And my kids are old enough now for me to name it, of like, we do some things for you, we do some things for the family, we do some things for me. So, I will sometimes steer our family activities when I'm on with the kids to things that I enjoy too. So not every time just exactly what's going to blow their mind, their favorite thing. And so so when you said the beach, I think about all the sand everywhere, and then I just start nervous. Okay, and so
I have to live with that and figure it out, right?
Yeah. And so you're going to hear how indoorsy I am. You know what I love? I love getting slushies and going to the movie theater, because if you pay for the more expensive seat, it's like getting a massage. And we can all be together. I mean, Elemental was a wonderful film. So, you just find those things that work. And, my kids deserve to see the outdoors once in a while, so I do take care of it. But I'm not going to do it every week, because that's not my jam,
And I feel like the you don't need to force it, you know what I mean? And I loved what you said earlier about we always think that we have to do these big elaborate things, right? And like, kids will literally go to the park and watch the animals, and that's like fine, or find a box and make something out of it, you know what I mean? And so I feel like sometimes you have to think about self-advocacy. Go back to, like, what do you need in this moment? And if you have to overextend yourself to make it happen, and then you're going to feel resentful after, think on it a little bit, right? And reflect on, should we be doing that, or can we do something else?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to hear from you too. I know we're going to try and keep it around 30 minutes, but what are you doing for the summer? What have you noticed with clients that you work with that's helpful?
Yeah, I feel like it's just really that balancing act, right? So being mindful that you can also enjoy the summer too, and the summer doesn't always have to be about the kids. And I, I, I don't know if you've seen things that are going around, like when you go on vacation with kids, it's not really a vacation. It's like you're doing supervision. I don't know the right term, but right. But like you said, it doesn't always have to be everything all about the kids, everything all about the kids. And then you're like exhausted by the time, the summer comes to an end. And then you have to start all over and everything is always the focus is on the kids. So just being very intentional or being very mindful to balance it, right? How can I incorporate some of the things that I would like to do for myself as well as, spending time with the kids or the family. And so for me, like I said, the beach is definitely something that we do. I love going. They enjoy it. But I also want to be intentional about going to the Usher concert with my friends and enjoying my summer, right? While they're
Absolutely.
doing their thing. And so kind of just and not, again, working through the feelings of guilt without the but, right, and do the end. I can feel guilty and still go and have fun with my friends.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, what are some of your favorite? I know we only have a few more minutes left, but what are some of your favorite things to do in terms of self care, summertime or throughout the year?
Yeah. Well, in California, in Northern California, we like to pretend we have seasons, but we don't really. And
I
so
know, right? So you're probably
one
like summer all the time over here.
so one of the ways that I love just like different kinds of fun drinks and ice creams and popsicles. Like I'll like to look for online like local eateries if there's a new sort of dessert place or something that's come up. I find that really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Always having time to read. I think the biggest thing for me is just staying connected to my friends as well. That's just my
Mm-hmm.
biggest part. That was so hard when my kids were really tiny, that it was just a text here and there, or that it took so much effort to get together. It was really
Yeah.
sad
Yeah.
for me. Um, and this year, I feel like it's really come together for me. My daughter's going into fourth grade, that I've really found a community of friends through the school. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we can get together as families, and I can also see friends and laugh as well. But it took a
Yeah.
really long time because of COVID. I mean, there were a couple years where I felt very disconnected from the school. So for me, it really is that social outlet.
Yeah.
Um, and then I shared last night as well. I was just, I'll do like a few yoga poses at the beginning or the end of the day just to sort of relax. And my daughter just said, "Oh, mom, it is very humiliating watching you do yoga." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yes.
And so I'm like, "Well, there you go. There's some laughter, which is
Right.
one of the 7 ways to complete the stress cycle."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Ay, ay, but just trying to find those little things. And honestly, during the summer, just making sure I'm drinking my water and staying hydrated and just, and I'm working on this, not staying up too late because summer makes me feel
I
like staying up
know.
late. And then I'm like, but
Mm-hmm.
I still have to be a mom at
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning. So sleep and just sort of that digital wellness at
Yeah.
night. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's harder for me in the summer. So that's something I continue to check in on. It's an up and a down for me. So.
I love that. I love that. I like the I try to bracket. I don't do bracket my day, right? With like the kind of the mindfulness in the morning and then some decompression time in the evening. Because I know early morning my daughter's going, "Hi mom." Like right in my face, "Hi mom." So yeah, definitely being intentional with like just finding those pockets, right? Of opportunities to engage in the things that make you feel like yourself and make you feel grounded.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
absolutely.
that.
I think that's the thing, make you feel like yourself and then having some fun too.
Exactly, exactly. So again, where can people find you? Do you have anything coming up that people need to look out for with the school year coming up? You guys start school a little bit earlier
We
than
do. So
East?
I go back in a couple weeks, but I also go back a week before the students.
Yeah.
So I know it feels really early. But yeah, we're just getting ready. Honestly, the summer flew by really
It
fast.
did.
But you can just, Instagram's where I'm most active. So you can just find everything there. Everything's there and on parent self care. And I have my ebook and different things, but just check out the website.
Yeah. Lots and lots of resources. Thank you so much for all you do. I feel like every single time I come on your page, there's something new to think over or reflect on. And you always share so many good resources, honestly.
Oh,
So thank you for all you
good,
do.
good. Well, it's so great to connect with you. Have a wonderful rest of your
You
summer.
as well.
And there,
Thanks
okay.
everybody for coming on. And again, thank you so much, Kristi, for your great reminders and tips. Megan and Riley just said that. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Bye.